The High Galactic Council declared war on humanity. Then she whispered, "You have no idea." The war vote changed the room before anyone spoke. Around the Orly's rotunda, 82 brass-white indicators slid from neutral blue to the red reserved for active fleet authority. A heartbeat later, the outer shutters sealed over the chamber windows, and the soft gravity beneath the delegates' feet increased by a fraction. The High Galactic Council had designed those changes to make declarations feel final. Commodore Alara Say only watched the lights. Across the circular floor, Fleet Master Norik Tal rose from the Tavrani military bench. His uniform had the dark forward stripe worn by officers certified in Crown Lattice Command, and the insignia at his collar marked 3 decades of formation warfare. He did not look pleased. That mattered more to Alara than the applause from the upper galleries. High Speaker Caldrus Orm lowered his hand. By authority of the Council, humanity is ordered to remove all armed vessels from Orison Verge within 1 standard rotation. Refusal constitutes armed defiance. The declaration is effective now. The Chamber's translation field repeated the sentence in 40 languages. Alara leaned toward Norik as attendants opened the military access aisle between them. She did not raise her voice. She did not smile. "You have no idea," she whispered. Norik's eyes narrowed. Then the chamber doors unlocked, and war became a scheduling problem. Outside the rotunda, security shutters divided diplomatic corridors into controlled lanes. Alara's aide caught up with her beside a row of service carts that had locked themselves to the wall tracks for the emergency posture. "Commodore, our shuttle clearance is suspended." "Expected." Council traffic says all military departures need bow first vectors through Corridor 12. Alara stopped walking. "Bow first." Her aide checked the tablet again. "Yes." "Request spherical clearance." "That will look provocative." "We're at war." The aide sent the request. 3 minutes later, Norik Tal stood in the Council Fleet Operations Annex, watching the human request appear on his traffic display. The words were almost irritating in their plainness. Spherical maneuver clearance. Minimum safe radius. 6 Chapelian GTHS. Norik read it twice. A Tavrani traffic officer beside him gave a short, dismissive click. They always ask for too much room. Norik did not answer immediately. Human vessels had done the same thing at peace conferences, survey exchanges, repair berths, even ceremonial reviews. Their captains disliked narrow departure corridors. Council logistics doctrine listed the habit under inefficient safety margins. Norik had accepted that classification for years. He touched the display. "Give them the volume." The officer looked surprised. "We just declared war, which is why I prefer not to begin it by colliding with a shuttle." The human courier separated from Orly Station 14 minutes later. It did not point toward its exit vector. That was the first thing Norik noticed. The small craft's nose remained aimed at the station while maneuvering jets brightened along its port flank. The shuttle slid sideways, accelerated, then rolled 90 degrees only after it had cleared the nearest traffic cone. The officer beside Norik frowned. "Wasteful." "Maybe." The shuttle vanished into transfer haze. Norik kept looking at the empty space it had crossed. By the time Alara reached the human command carrier, Quiet Vector at Orison Verge, the Council Expeditionary Force had already begun forming. Orison Verge was a poor reason for a war. The system held no inhabited world, no ancient artifact, no miraculous fuel source. It had a small yellow star, 2 airless rocks, an ice belt, a navigation relay, and a set of treaty markers placed years earlier after a border survey nobody had expected to matter. That was exactly why Caldrus Orm had chosen it. A small place made a clean test. Humanity had established a legal patrol presence there under the existing border compact. The Council had decided that the patrol presence should end. If humans obeyed, the Council would prove its authority without risking a major system. If they refused, the Council's fleet would demonstrate the cost of refusal. Norik's 82 ships entered in 3 groups and began assembling the crown. From the bridge of Ordered Dawn, the formation looked almost beautiful. Long Tavrani capital hulls turned bow inward along shallow arcs. Shield petals overlapped, Missile cruisers occupied rear pockets. Lighter cutters formed outer teeth. Each ship's safe firing corridors appeared as pale lines across Norek's tactical display, converging on the human-held side of the system. At the center of the bridge, Norek's command chair faced forward like every other seat. "Human count?" he asked. 31 combat hulls, 4 support vessels, no reinforcements detected. "Formation?" The tactical officer hesitated. "None we recognize." Norek enlarged the display. Human ships were spread across a volume nearly 3 times wider than an equivalent council force would use. Some faced inward, others faced away. Several were oriented above or below the system plane. Quiet Vector sat nowhere near the geometric center. A junior analyst gave a nervous laugh. "They are making our argument for us." Norek glanced back. "Explain." "Insufficient overlap, weak mutual shielding, poor concentration, no stable battle axis." All true. The Council had spent generations refining the Crown Lattice because physics punished disorder. A ship could armor every surface, but its strongest defenses still concentrated forward. Its largest drive still pushed best along the hull's long axis. Weapons fired cleanest when friendly vessels remained outside their cones. The Crown converted those realities into doctrine. Humanity's fleet appeared to ignore all of them. "Send final withdrawal instruction," Norek said. A channel opened. Ilara appeared on the forward display wearing a dark fleet jacket without ceremonial trim. Behind her, Quiet Vector's bridge looked wrong. Half the seats were mounted on rotating rings. Foot rails crossed the deck and walls. A metal mug sat clipped beside a console at an angle that would have made sense only if the wall sometimes became the floor. Narek had seen human bridges before. He had never cared about the furniture. "Commodore Say," he said, "you have 41 minutes remaining. We are aware. Your position is untenable." "That is your position." Narek ignored the wording. "The Council has declared a limited war. Withdraw your armed vessels from Orison Verge. No pursuit will occur if you comply." Ilara's expression remained steady. Orison Verge is recognized under the Border Compact as a joint access system. Your declaration does not erase the compact. The Council interprets it differently. "So I heard." Narek studied her. "Do you intend to fight 82 warships over 2 rocks and a relay?" "No." The answer surprised him. Then she added, "I intend to hold our lawful patrol position. That requires fighting. Only if you keep coming." The channel closed. Narek exhaled slowly. The junior analyst began another comment about human bravado. Narek cut him off with a raised hand. "Enough. Their ships are outnumbered. Their formation is poor. Those facts do not need applause." He looked again at the human fleet. One cruiser near the ice belt rotated 30 degrees, then stopped. Another shifted upward without changing its bow orientation. Quiet Vector remained still. "Advance Crown by 1 interval." Order Dawn's engines deepened beneath Narek's feet. Across Orison Verge, 82 council ships moved together. The human force did not retreat. The first pressure came without weapons fire. Council picket cruisers expanded the Crown's outer teeth, squeezing the navigable space around the human patrol markers. Ilara ordered 3 human ships to change position. None turned before moving. One slid almost vertically relative to the system plane. Another accelerated backward. A third drifted diagonally across the projected path of 2 Tavrani missile cruisers and stopped exactly outside legal collision distance. On Order Dawn, firing corridors shifted. "Recalculate," Norek said. The tactical board adjusted. The Crown continued. Quiet Vector finally moved. Narek leaned forward. The human command ship did not rotate toward open space. Bright thrust flared along its lower starboard belt, and the entire flattened hull leapt sideways. Not drifted. Leapt. Norek felt his jaw tighten. The tactical officer spoke quickly. "Lateral acceleration is 38% above estimate. Update the estimate. They are still outside weapons range." For now, the human ship rolled as it moved. Seats on Ilara's bridge rotated with it. Crew boots transferred from one set of rails to another. Service carts locked to new tracks. What Norek had dismissed as strange furniture suddenly looked less strange. The crown tightened. Targeting solutions developing. Weapons reported. Hold fire until they violate the withdrawal boundary. The timer reached 19 minutes. A human destroyer crossed the Council's projected attack axis. Narek watched its bow remain, pointed almost 90 degrees away from its direction of travel. Solution on destroyer, he asked. Developing. The ship moved again. The solution vanished. Second solution. Blocked by Resolute Banner. That was one of Narek's own cruisers. He looked at the geometry. The human destroyer had not threatened Resolute Banner. It had simply moved into a place where another Council ship now sat behind it. The crown adjusted. The human destroyer accelerated upward. Another firing corridor closed. Narek's eyes narrowed. Commodore, the tactical officer said, they are not evading our ships. No, Narek said. He watched quiet vector slide through a vector his model had treated as transitional rather than primary. They are evading our assumptions. The bridge grew quiet around him. Narek enlarged the predicted tracks and removed the display's preferred forward vectors. The picture became uglier but also clearer. Human ships were not moving randomly. Each displacement changed what the Council could safely shoot through. Every time the crown compressed to recover overlap, the humans widened. Every time the outer teeth widened to open a shot, another human hull crossed the gap from an angle the model assigned a slower turning cost. New solution on their destroyer, the tactical officer said. A pale line appeared. Before Narek could answer, the human vessel fired its port maneuver belt. It crossed the line sideways and dropped beneath the crown's plane. The line disappeared. Again, Narek said. A second solution formed on a different target. Quiet vector shifted backward, not away from the Council, but toward another human cruiser. Their paths crossed within a margin that made the Tavrani collision officer hiss. Then both ships separated along opposite vertical axes. Two more Council firing corridors died. Narek's timer reached 12 minutes. He could force the issue. He possessed more ships, heavier forward batteries, stronger overlapping shields, and a doctrine tested in real wars. But certainty was gone. He looked at the crown, then at the human volume beyond it. What, he asked softly, are they trying to make us do? Narek did not wait for the timer to answer him. Advance outer cutters by half interval. Keep capital ships in crown spacing. The order moved through the fleet. Human ships reacted at once. Two destroyers separated. A cruiser rolled over its long axis and accelerated toward the ice belt. Quiet vector shifted deeper into the human volume. Narek watched their motions without trying to fit them into the old labels. Do not predict bows, he told Tactical. Predict thrust availability. The officer looked over. Fleet Master, you heard me. The display recalculated. For the first time, human movement looked less like disorder. Each ship possessed several large maneuver bands distributed around the hull. None matched the output of a Tavrani main drive, but together they allowed abrupt acceleration along directions Council warships treated as secondary. Not infinite freedom, not magic, different priorities. A weapons officer raised her hand. Boundary timer, 5 minutes. Narek opened the command channel. Elarase, final warning. The human Commodore appeared. Her chair had rotated 40 degrees since the previous call. The bridge behind her now seemed canted. We received the first two, she said. Withdraw. No. Then I will enter weapons range. That is your choice. Narek studied her face. No last statement. Elara looked toward something off-screen, then back. Keep your ships farther apart. The channel cut. One of Narek's officers clicked his teeth. Threat. No, Narek said. The officer turned. Narek pointed at the board. Advice. The timer reached 0. Order Dawn crossed the declared military boundary. The crown moved with it. Weapons lit across the Council formation, not firing yet but charging into readiness. The board filled with clean projected corridors. Humanity moved. 31 warships changed vector almost simultaneously. No hidden signal preceded it. No impossible synchronization appeared. Some moved early, some late, some sharply, some only a few ship lengths. The pattern was not a formation in the Council sense. It was a volume becoming hostile to prediction. Fire warning salvos on empty vectors, Narek ordered. 3 capital ships fired controlled beams past the human perimeter. The humans did not return fire. Instead, Quiet Vector accelerated straight across the expected line of Ordered Dawn's second battery. Narek's targeting officer shifted aim. Blocked. By what? Majesty of Law. A council battleship. Narek looked up. Quiet Vector had placed itself where Majesty of Law sat beyond it. A lethal shot at the human command ship risked striking the friendly hull if Quiet Vector moved during the beam duel. Shift Battery 3. Blocked by Radiant Accord. Another friendly ship. Missiles. Safe corridor available. Launch 6. 6 missiles left Ordered Dawn and curved toward a human cruiser. The cruiser did not turn away. It dropped. Hard. Its entire hull translated below the council plane while its bow stayed fixed on empty space. The missiles followed. A second human destroyer crossed behind it and fired defensive interceptors. 2 missiles died. The remaining 4 continued. Then the cruiser accelerated laterally. The missiles curved again. They passed between 2 council cutters close enough that both vessels automatically broke position to avoid the pursuing weapons. The crown opened a gap. Human ships moved into it. Recall missiles, Narek said. Already done. The 4 surviving weapons turned away and self-terminated in empty space. The crown's outer ring was now uneven. Narek's tactical officer stared at the board. They used our missiles to move our cutters. They used our safety doctrine, Narek corrected. Same result. No different weakness. That distinction mattered. A reckless enemy could have forced the same break by hiding behind civilians or ramming through friendly geometry. Humanity had done neither. Orison Verge was empty. Their ships had simply made the council choose between maintaining formation and avoiding its own weapons. Reform Crown, Narek ordered. The fleet obeyed. Humanity backed away, just enough to keep the geometry unstable. For the next 7 minutes, the fight became a contest of empty space. Council ships pushed inward. Human ships crossed anticipated firing corridors. Tavrani cruisers adjusted. Human destroyers changed vertical position. Neither side fired directly. Then a council cutter captain found the first clean opening. Target human destroyer Kestrel mark. No friendly hull behind. Range acceptable. Narek checked the track. Fire 1 beam. The cutter fired. Kestrel mark moved before the beam arrived. Not away from the cutter. Toward it. The human destroyer accelerated diagonally across the cutter's bow, past outside collision distance, then rolled while continuing along the same translation vector. The beam missed behind it. For 2 seconds, Kestrel mark occupied a position inside the crown's outer tooth, where 3 council ships could not fire without crossing one another's arcs. The human destroyer could. Its forward weapons remained cold. Narek's belief cracked there. Not because the human ship was invulnerable. It was not. Not because council weapons were weak. They were not. The problem was the category. Narek had treated human lateral thrust as an inefficient substitute for turning. It was not a substitute. Human ships had been designed around the assumption that direction and orientation did not need to agree. Cancel contempt notation, he said. The tactical officer blinked. Fleet Master. The readiness estimate. Remove the line describing their spacing as poor discipline. Replacement. Narek watched Kestrel mark exit the crown before the formation could close around it. Unknown doctrine. The change propagated through the fleet. On Quiet Vector, Ilara saw the council threat board change color. They've stopped assuming we're incompetent, her operations officer said. Good. Good. It took them 9 minutes. The officer looked at her. Ilara tightened the restraint across her shoulder as the bridge rotated under another maneuver command. Narek Tal is dangerous if he learns. We needed him learning before someone else decided the answer was more fire. A warning flashed. Council capital ships were spreading their forward sectors. Ilara leaned toward the display. He's widening. The crown's petals shifted. Shield overlap decreased slightly. Firing corridors grew. He's trading defense for clean lanes, operations said. Expected. Can we keep closing them? For now. Ilara tapped 3 ship markers. Vector Group Blue, cross low. Do not shoot unless targeted. 3 human ships moved. Council fire followed. This time, the beams came from separated capital ships with wider spacing. One struck a human cruiser's outer armor. The impact spun fragments away in a glittering cloud. The cruiser remained under control, but its upper maneuver belt dimmed. Ilara's jaw tightened. Damage. External no-pressure loss. Upper belt reduced. Move them back. The cruiser translated downward, then sideways, making use of intact thrusters. Narek saw the hit too. Human ships could be damaged. Good. That meant the problem had boundaries. Continue widen crown, he ordered. The Council fleet loosened. For a moment, firing quality improved. Then humanity changed again. Human ships stopped crossing individual firing corridors one at a time. They began moving in pairs separated by large vertical distances. One ship would enter a dangerous line and force a Council battery to track. Its partner would shift along another axis, threatening the empty space the first ship had just left. Council guns swung back and forth. The Crown could either preserve shield overlap or maintain firing solutions. Not both. Narek watched a representation of his doctrine fail in slow physical pieces. He did not despair. He searched for the point where human freedom became expensive. Thruster temperature, he said. On our ships. Theirs. Sensors magnified. Human maneuver belts were heating rapidly. There. Axis freedom had a cost. Track repeated lateral burns. Find ships approaching thermal limits. The tactical staff worked. 3 human ships appeared in amber. Narek selected the nearest. Pressure those. Council cutters accelerated. The human ships moved again, but less sharply. Fleet Master, the analyst said, we can force them to spend maneuver reserve. Then do it. For the first time since weapons range began, humanity gave ground. Ilara saw the same problem. They found heat. We can rotate cool belts in. Not forever. Orders. Ilara looked at the Crown. It was wider now, less protected, more dangerous. Exactly halfway between what she wanted and what Narek wanted. Make him choose again. She assigned 5 human ships to drive toward the Crown's upper flank. Narek reacted by moving 3 capital cruisers outward. The center weakened. 2 human destroyers crossed the gap. Council shields reoriented. A human cruiser fired the first offensive shot of the battle. One narrow pulse struck the empty space immediately ahead of a Tavrani battleship. The battleship's collision system interpreted the flash as debris risk and shifted half a degree. Half a degree was enough. Its shield overlap separated from ordered dawn. Narek's tactical board opened a pale seam through the Crown. Human ships surged toward it. Close center. Council ships turned. Too slowly. Not slow in absolute terms. Slow relative to vessels that did not need to point where they intended to go. Quiet Vector accelerated along a diagonal line no Crown simulation had assigned as a primary penetration path. For 19 seconds, the human command ship passed through the seam between Council shield sectors. Its weapons could have fired into the exposed sides of 2 capital vessels. They remained cold. Then Quiet Vector was through. Narek stood from his chair. The Crown reformed behind it. The command deck waited for anger. He felt none, only clarity. The formation was not protecting his fleet from humanity. It was giving humanity a map of where his fleet could not move. Break Crown lattice, Narek said. No one answered. He turned toward the command staff. Now, the officer responsible for formation control swallowed. Into what pattern? Narek looked at the human ships scattered across the volume. None. Order Dawn transmitted the order. Across Orison Verge, the Council's perfect formation began to come apart. Capital ships rolled away, shield petals separated, cutters accelerated, missile cruisers abandoned rear pockets. On the human bridge, the tactical picture changed so quickly that 2 officers spoke at once. Ilara silenced them with one hand. He did it. Operation stared. He threw away their best formation. No, he threw away the weakness we were using. The Council fleet stopped presenting predictable gaps. Narek watched the new geometry settle into something untidy and dangerous. Hunter groups, he ordered. Fastest cutters pair with one heavy ship. Do not chase their bows. Chase available thrust. Pressure one vessel until it has to repeat itself. His officers moved. The war became much harder. Narek looked again at Quiet Vector's marker. Now, he said, show me what you do when we stop helping you. The first hunter group reached Quiet Vector 4 minutes later. 2 Tavrani cutters came high and low, while the heavy cruiser Honor through measure held farther back, its forward batteries forcing Alara to keep moving. The pattern had none of the Crown's clean symmetry. It was ugly, flexible, and effective. Upper cutter is matching our port belt, Operations said. Then don't give it port. Alara ordered a downward burn. Quiet Vector dropped. The lower cutter was already there. A beam flashed across the human ship's path. Alara felt the bridge restraints catch against her ribs as the command deck rotated with the maneuver. They anticipated that. They anticipated the available belt, Operations replied. Good new vector. Quiet Vector accelerated backward and up. Honor through measure fired. The human ship rolled through the beam's edge. Armor alarms lit across the bridge. A maintenance status line changed from green to amber. Outer plating only. Keep moving. Across the wider battle volume, the same problem repeated. Without the Crown, Council ships no longer handed humanity predictable lines of mutual obstruction. Narek's hunter groups did not try to restore perfect formation. They stayed separated, applied pressure from several directions, and watched which human thrust belts brightened. Narek stood behind Order Dawn's tactical pit. Do not chase position, he told his captains. Chase repetition. A cutter captain answered. Quiet Vector favors lower starboard escape after port pressure. Tested. The hunter group pressed. Alara saw the trap a second before it closed. Lower starboard is compromised. Reverse. The helm's officer pulled the ship across another axis. The cutter above fired. Quiet Vector avoided the main beam. The lower cutter launched a short missile, burst into the path the human ship had just chosen. Intercept. Human defensive fire caught most of the missiles. One survived. It struck the housing of Quiet Vector's port lateral thrust belt. The bridge kicked sideways. Lights dimmed for half a second. Then the ship began to rotate in a direction Alara had not ordered. Port lateral offline. Compensate. Compensating. Thrusters on the opposite side fired. The unwanted rotation slowed. Honor through measure advanced. Commodore, Operations said. We lost the clean lateral option. Alara looked at the tactical display. The original plan was dead. Humanity had intended to break the Crown's geometry, demonstrate positional superiority, and make the Council choose negotiation before serious damage accumulated. Narek had discarded the Crown. Now he had identified the heat limits of human maneuver and removed one of Quiet Vector's major axes. She had expected him to adapt. She had not expected him to adapt this quickly. Signal fleet, Alara said. Plan glasses canceled. No one on the bridge pretended that had been part of the design. The order went out. Human ships widened. 2 retreated toward the relay. 3 shifted to support Quiet Vector, but Tavrani cutters moved to block their most direct routes. Narek saw the change. Human central plan altered, Tactical reported. Meaning, they are no longer pushing for rapid positional collapse. Narek nodded. Then our counter worked. There was no celebration on Order Dawn. The war was still dangerous. Human ships remained difficult to target. Council capital vessels remained vulnerable if they let humans close along unexpected vectors. But for the first time, Narek had forced the humans to surrender an objective. That mattered. Keep pressure on Quiet Vector. Do not overcommit. Caldrus Orm's face appeared in a priority window. Fleet Master, why has the Crown been dissolved? Because it was helping them. Orm's expression hardened. The Crown is Council doctrine. Then Council doctrine was helping them. You cannot discard generations of formation law during the opening exchange. I already did. The High Speaker leaned closer to his camera. Destroy their command ship. Narek looked at Quiet Vector's marker. No. Orm went still. We are at war. We are prosecuting a limited removal action. Quiet Vector is damaged and contained. Destroying it for political theater is not necessary. They embarrass the Council. That is not a targeting category. Narek closed the political channel before Orm could answer. His tactical officer pretended not to notice. Hunter group closing again. Maintain. On quiet vector, repair teams reached the damaged port thrust housing through an internal service gallery. They could isolate the burned feeds, but not restore the belt under combat load. Best case, Alara asked. 26 minutes if nobody shoots us. They will. Then not 26. Alara looked through the forward display. The phrase was nearly meaningless on a ship whose movement did not privilege forward, but the bridge still had one main screen because humans liked looking somewhere. The Tavrani cutters approached from opposite elevations. Options. Operations listed them. Retreat toward relay. High risk they pressure us from damaged port side. Move into support arc of Mercer Vale. That exposes Mercer Vale. Rotate bow toward port and use main drive for lateral translation, but we lose weapon geometry during the turn. Ilara looked up. Say that again. Rotate bow toward port. No, the next part. Use main drive to replace lateral translation. The bridge quieted. Quiet vector had been designed to avoid needing that maneuver. Its distributed thrust system existed so orientation and direction could remain independent. But the ship still had a main drive, and nothing in physics cared what the designers had intended the ship to call forward. How long for full hull rotation? 11 seconds under current pressure. Too long. 8 if we use dorsal belt to start the roll. Thermal margin. Bad. Specific. 7% before automatic reduction. Ilara nodded. Do it. Operation stared. Commodore, after the rotation our weapon arcs will be wrong. Our weapon arcs are already wrong if we're dead. Quiet vector began to turn. Narek saw it immediately. Why are they rotating? His officer answered, unknown. Main drive alignment changing. Toward us? No. That made him pay attention. The human ship rolled and yawed together, using intact maneuver belts to swing its hull around. For several seconds it became easier to predict. Norek's cutters fired. One beam scraped across Quiet Vector's armor. Another struck an external sensor mast and sent fragments spinning. Continue pressure. Honor through measure charged its main battery. Then Quiet Vector completed the rotation. Its main stern drive pointed toward the space that had been the ship's damaged port side. The drive ignited. Quiet Vector moved. Not elegantly, not in the way its designers had intended, but hard. The ship surged across the axis Narek thought he had removed. The upper cutter's firing solution collapsed. The lower cutter adjusted too late. Quiet Vector passed between them, then killed its main drive and resumed distributed thrust using the belts that remained. Narek's tactical officer whispered, "They turned the ship to move sideways." Narek almost corrected the sentence. Then he realized the sentence was the point. They turned the ship so sideways stopped existing. The officer looked at him. Narek ignored the phrasing and studied the consequence. The human capability was not invulnerability. It was not even the multi-axis thruster system by itself. It was a design philosophy that treated orientation as disposable. Damage changed which engines were available. Human crews changed what those engines meant. Send to all hunter groups, Narek said. Do not assume disabling one lateral band removes that direction of escape. Alternative, force them to spend time reorienting. That is the cost. The order spread. Alara saw council pressure change within 90 seconds. They learned again. Operations sounded tired. Alara felt the same way. Then we learned faster. Across Orison Verge, human captains began adapting their own damaged ships. One cruiser with an overheated dorsal belt rolled until an intact ventral belt could take its place. A destroyer with weakened aft steering reversed its operational orientation and fought stern first relative to its original battle plan. The adjustments were not synchronized tricks. Each ship solved its own geometry from the hardware still working. Narek's hunter groups responded by stretching engagements, forcing repeated rotations, and attacking during transition windows. The battle stopped resembling either side's doctrine. It became a series of decisions under acceleration. A human cruiser took another hit and withdrew behind the relay. A Tavrani cutter lost its forward sensor blister, to a precise human pulse and broke away. A Council missile cruiser fired too early, saw a friendly track cross the corridor, and aborted its own volley. Ilara watched the pressure map. They were surviving. They were not winning quickly. That distinction mattered. Council heavy group approaching relay side, operations said. Numbers 7. Purpose to pin Mercer Vale and close our retreat volume. Ilara enlarged the map. Narek was no longer merely reacting. He was building something. On Order Dawn, the Fleet Master traced the open order groups with one hand. The Crown had failed because every ship's position depended on every other ship's position. So he removed the dependency. He gave captains broad attack volumes instead of fixed slots. He ordered them to keep enough spacing that human ships could not easily turn one firing line into another Council vessel. He assigned cutters to pressure rotational transition windows and heavies to hold distance. The result was not beautiful. It did not need to be. Open order net established, Tactical said. Narek looked at the human fleet. Compressed by sectors, no central axis, no crown, no repeated geometry. The groups moved. Human maneuver lanes began to disappear. On quiet vector, warning markers multiplied. Operations spoke quietly. He fixed it. Ilara looked at the closing net. No. She tightened her restraints as another acceleration warning sounded. He built a different problem. Outside, the Tavrani fleet spread through Orison Verge, without a formation for humanity to break. And for the first time, quiet vector had nowhere obvious to go. The net tightened by sectors. Each Council group kept enough empty space to fire safely. Cutters watched the remaining gaps for human rotations. Ilara checked fuel, heat, and damage. Together they were becoming a deadline. Mercer Vale reports another 6 minutes before dorsal reduction, operations said. Kestrel mark, missile reserve low. Quiet vector, port lateral remains dead. Starboard belts are hot. Ilara watched escape volumes disappear. Narek had done what competent opponents should. He had taken the proof seriously. That made the Council more dangerous. Fleet-wide, Ilara said. Stop trying to recreate the first fight. We're done teaching the Crown lesson. What are we teaching now? Ilara looked at the open order net closing around them. Nothing. She released her harness lock, turned her chair toward the navigation pit, and secured it again. Now we solve this one. Ilara did not order retreat. She ordered every human ship to stop, using the same definition of escape. The instruction sounded almost useless, until navigation translated it into local problems. Quiet Vector needed room away from its damaged port side. Mercer Vale needed to cool a dorsal belt. Kestrel Mark needed to conserve missiles. 2 cruisers needed to protect the relay without becoming fixed points. There was no single vector that solved all of those needs. So Ilara stopped searching for one. Independent axis changes, she said. Keep mutual weapons clearance. Protect damaged ships. Do not chase Council hulls outside the verge markers. Operations sent the order. Narek's open order net continued closing. A Tavrani heavy cruiser moved to seal Quiet Vector's easiest main drive path. 2 cutters watched the rotation window that would let the human ship substitute its main drive for the dead lateral belt. Narek had learned the maneuver. Ilara saw that too. Do not rotate yet. Then our port volume closes. I know. The cutters advanced. Quiet Vector burned upward, using an overheated belt. Temperature warnings sharpened. Dorsal margin 3%. Hold. A Council beam passed beneath them. 2%. Hold. Honor through measure shifted to catch the next likely move. Ilara waited until the Tavrani heavy committed its bow. Now rotate. Quiet Vector rolled. The cutters surged toward the expected transition line, but Ilara did not light the main drive. She used the roll only to change which intact lateral belt faced the open volume, then fired that belt before the cutters could correct. Quiet Vector shot diagonally between their attack cones. Narek's tactical officer swore. They baited the rotation response. No, Narek said. We trained ourselves to expect it. He changed orders immediately. Cutters stop keying on rotations, hold distance, heavy groups compress. The net changed again. Ilara almost smiled, but there was no time. A warning appeared from Mercer Vale. 3 Council ships had forced the damaged cruiser toward the system relay. If Mercer Vale moved farther back, it would cross beyond the human patrol boundary and surrender the legal position humanity was defending. If it stayed, it faced converging fire. Quiet vector to Mercer Vale. Hold, we're coming. Operations looked at Alara. That takes us toward Ordered Dawn. Yes. Most of their heavies are there. Yes. Quiet vector accelerated. 3 other human ships altered course with it, not forming a crown, not stacking shields, simply creating overlapping options. One climbed, one dropped, one moved backward relative to its bow. Council groups turned to meet them. The battle volume compressed. This time there were clean shots. A Tavrani cruiser fired first. The beam struck Quiet Vector's forward armor and threw the bridge against its restraints. Lights flashed red. A panel died beside navigation. Pressure intact. Main drive. Available. Starboard belt. Hot but available. Return solution. Weapons answered immediately. Clean shot on cruiser drive section. Alara looked at the range. A full pulse could cripple it. Hold. Weapons hesitated. Commodore. Hold. Quiet Vector moved instead. The Tavrani cruiser fired again. The human ship changed vector along a vertical axis and the beam missed, but the delay cost them. A second council group closed behind. Narek saw the refusal. Why didn't they fire? His officer checked. They had a solution. Narek knew. The humans were choosing geometry over destruction. That choice created an opening. Compress command sector, he ordered. Ordered Dawn, and 5 heavies moved inward. It was the right counter. It also created the last thing Alara needed. Not a crown, a concentration. Now, she said, human ships accelerated along different axes at once. Quiet Vector went high and inward. Kestrel Mark drove laterally beneath Ordered Dawn. Mercer Vale reversed toward the relay, then dropped. 2 other cruisers crossed from opposite elevations. The council group tried to preserve separation, but Open Order had a weakness too. Ships without shared geometric dependence also lacked shared defensive concentration. Narek watched human vectors converge around the command sector. Spread. The order came seconds too late. Not because council ships were slow, because human ships did not need to turn before leaving the lines Narek expected them to use. Quiet Vector passed above Ordered Dawn. Kestrel Mark crossed beneath. Mercer Vale moved behind the Tavrani heavies. For one brief interval, the Council Command Group was surrounded by human firing solutions. Weapons officers on Quiet Vector called targets. Ordered Dawn main drive, clean. Honor through measure forward battery, clean. 2 cutter engine clusters, clean. Alara looked at the board. The human fleet had what the Council had declared war to prove it could deny them. Freedom of position. Do not fire. Silence filled the bridge. Operations looked at her. They are still shooting. As if summoned by the words, a beam struck a human destroyer near the relay. Armor vapor flashed away. The ship remained maneuverable. Alara's face tightened. Do not fire unless needed to stop an immediate hit. That restraint cost them. Ordered Dawn rotated its bow toward Quiet Vector. Its main battery began charging. Narek saw the human command ship above him. He also saw 4 human firing solutions pointing at propulsion, weapons, and maneuver structures across his command group. They had not fired. Caldrus Orm opened a priority channel without invitation. Tal, destroy her. Narek did not turn. Fleet Master. Ordered Dawn's battery charge climbed. Quiet Vector's weapons remained ready. Narek understood the position completely. If he fired, Alara could answer. Perhaps Ordered Dawn would survive. Perhaps not. Other Council heavies would certainly be damaged. The Open Order net had removed the Crown's mutual vulnerability, but it had also removed the Crown's mutual protection. Humanity had adapted after losing its easy advantage. His own best counter had worked. Humanity had adapted again. And now the decisive question was not whether human ships could kill his. It was why they had not. Narek lowered one hand. Discharge main battery. The weapons officer stared. Fleet Master. Safely discharge, all ships cease fire. Caldrus Orm shouted something from the political channel. Narek muted him. Across Orison Verge, Council weapon signatures began falling. Ilara waited. Human fleet cease offensive tracking. Maintain defensive readiness. Target markers vanished one by one. The silence after active weapons felt larger than the battle. Narek opened a direct channel. Ilara appeared with a dark bruise beginning along one cheek where a restraint had caught her during the last hit. Nothing in her expression resembled triumph. Narek said, "You could have fired." "Yes." "You chose not to." "Yes." "Why?" "Because we wanted Orison Verge." Narek frowned. Ilara continued, "Not you're dead." For several seconds neither spoke. Then Narek looked toward the tactical display where 82 council markers remained mostly intact, scattered through a formation that no longer existed. "I request an armistice to return this dispute to the council." Ilara nodded once. "Accepted if your ships hold position and no one fires." "They will. That includes your High Speaker." Narek glanced at the muted political window. "That may be the most difficult order today." Ilara's mouth moved by the smallest amount. "Then you finally have an interesting problem." The armistice reached Orly's rotunda 43 minutes later. Caldris Orm tried to preserve the declaration as a political instrument. He argued that the Council fleet had not been destroyed, that humanity had suffered damage, that Orison Verge remained disputed. Narek testified from Order Dawn before repairs were complete. He did not describe humanity as unstoppable. That would have been easier. He described the Council estimate as wrong. Our model treated forward orientation, formation overlap, and firing concentration as universal measures of fleet quality. They are not universal. Humanity optimized for different constraints. A delegate asked, "Could the Council win another engagement?" Narek answered carefully, "Any fleet can lose. Any ship can be destroyed. That is not the question before you. What is? Whether we can compel withdrawal at acceptable cost, using the doctrine on which this declaration was authorized." The rotunda was quiet. "No," Narek said. "The war writ was rescinded. The border compact was restored pending bilateral review. Humanity's patrol presence at Orison Verge remained lawful. More importantly, the Council changed the classification attached to human military delegations. No longer peripheral auxiliary, no longer formation-incompatible minor power, independent strategic peer. The wording mattered because procedures followed it. Future military disputes with humanity required bilateral operational terms. Council planners could not assign human forces to crown compatibility tables as if nonconformity were deficiency. Caldris Orm kept his seat until the next internal review. Humanity requested neither his arrest nor his removal. Narek kept Order Dawn. The revised patrol manual reached both fleets before the next rotation. Its first page contained no praise, only spacing rules, weapons conditions, collision authority, and one sentence requiring planners to state which maneuver assumptions their models treated as universal. Narek signed his copy. On Quiet Vector, Ilara found the same line while a technician replaced a warped wall track latch beside her chair. The service cart that had broken loose during the battle was back in place, clipped down on 3 sides. Council engineers added spherical clearance to the traffic software, her operations officer said. "I saw. They also want human observers at their next formation exercise." "Observers?" "To tell them when the model is lying." Ilara looked at him. "Models don't lie. You know what I mean." "I do." She signed the patrol acknowledgement. Across the system, Order Dawn transmitted its route first. It was a curve, leaving room above and below instead of claiming the central plane. Quiet Vector answered with a route beside it rather than behind it. Narek saw the 2 paths appear. Months earlier, he would have read the separation as failure to coordinate. Now the gap itself was part of the agreement. He approved both routes without asking either fleet to narrow them. Months later, he returned to Orison Verge for the first joint patrol under the revised terms. There was no crown. Council ships entered in broad arcs with deliberate separation. Human ships arrived in their own wide volume. Traffic software published spherical maneuver zones for both forces. Quiet Vector came last. Its repaired port thrust belt flashed once as Alara shifted the ship sideways into position. Ordered Dawn held a parallel course several thousand kilometers away. Neither formation merged. Neither tried to contain the other. Between them, the old treaty relay turned slowly in the yellow light. For the first time, two fleets crossed Orison Verge together, without one being required to fit inside the other's idea of forward.